Hi everyone. Remember Ted? How about Molly? Well, guess what? They met while going through a whole body scanner on their way to a conference about wood smoke, and they got married. After the happy event, they planned to move to a farm in rural BC. They found a great area that was nowhere near any cell towers or wind turbines, but just before they signed the papers, they learned there was fracking going on nearby. They were worried. Should they be? Let's find out. In this video, we'll discuss the following. What is fracking and where it is occurring? What is known about the risks of fracking to environmental health? What is known about the risks of fracking to human health? How is fracking regulated in BC? Fracking is short for hydraulic fracturing. In other words, the use of high-pressure fluid to crack open rock and gain access to fossil fuels that aren't accessible otherwise. This diagram shows the steps involved in fracking. Fracking uses a great deal of water. At least 4 million and up to 20 million liters are needed for each well. This water is mixed with chemicals and sand. The chemicals mixed in include acids, alcohols, and hydrocarbons and help to dissolve minerals and crack open the rock. This mixture is pumped at high pressure into a well, which extends downwards generally by at least a kilometer. You can see in the diagram the well also extends horizontally. The high pressure fluid fractures the rock and allows natural gas to escape and come to the surface. As the gas flows to the surface, it brings water with it, which must be stored and processed. Let's talk about this wastewater for a moment. There are two types of wastewater, flowback water and produced water. Flowback water is the fluid that is initially injected and comes back to the surface along with the gas. Produced water is water naturally in the rock formation that flows out. Both types of water are contaminated with hydrocarbons, heavy metals, and high levels of dissolved minerals. Of the hundreds of chemicals in this water, Health Canada has classified 33 as known toxins to human health. The water may also be contaminated with radioactive components such as radium or thorium carried upwards from deep within the earth. To dispose of this water, it is frequently injected deep underground into what are called injection wells. If no such wells are available, the water may be processed as chemical waste. In BC, fracking occurs mostly in the northeast of the province, in the Montney Basin near Dawson Creek and the Horn River Basin near Fort Nelson. This map shows where applications for fracking-related water use have been filed. There are thousands of active fracking wells in BC, an order of magnitude more than in other provinces. There are also about 252 active deep injection wells. Now let's talk about the environmental effects of fracking. The biggest environmental concerns have to do with water. They focus on 4 risks. First, the amount of water used. Fracking uses about 1% of the total water use in the US and Canada. In certain regions, the burden of fracking on the water supply can be much higher, though. In some counties in the US, for example, fracking accounts for over 30% of the total water consumption. Secondly, the chemicals injected in the fracking process can be spilled during transport or preparation. In a recent EPA review of fracking, there were spills at about 1% of wells annually, and about 1/10 of these spills reached surface water. Third, during the actual fracking process, when fluids are injected at high pressure, there is a risk that these chemicals may escape into drinking water sources. There have been such contamination in Ohio, Colorado, and North Dakota, where poorly maintained equipment allowed fluids into underground aquifers. Fourth, the flowback and produced water can contaminate drinking water. The EPA has found over 200 such examples of groundwater and drinking water contamination. What about earthquakes? There has been a dramatic increase in earthquakes in parts of the world where fracking is increasing, like Oklahoma. This map shows this increase from about 2010 onwards, when fracking was increasing. Seismic activity can be caused both by the fracking and the disposal into deep injection wells. What about the risks of fracking on human health? Overall, studies of health outcomes due to fracking are weak. Many are performed without proper controls, and they use self-reported illness. A recent review of the health literature found only about 5 large, well-performed studies. All 5, though, did find negative health outcomes associated with proximity to fracking sites. These outcomes were adult, cardiac and neurological hospital admissions, cardiac birth defects and neural tube defects, as well as low birth weight, and childhood brain tumors. However, all 5 studies had some significant limitations, like incomplete controls for things like smoking, and the effects were overall quite weak. What about earthquakes? Most earthquakes related to fracking activity are quite weak, under magnitude 4. There have been only a few instances of injuries or property damage. Finally, let's consider how fracking is regulated in Canada. Most regulations occur at the provincial level. In BC, the responsible body is the BC Oil and Gas Commission, a provincial agency which regulates all oil and gas exploration and development. In addition, they issue permits for both water extraction and water injection of wastewater under the Water Sustainability Act. Examples of the regulations they enforce to protect water are that wells must be lined with cement to a minimum depth of 600 meters. Fracking wells cannot be closer than 200 meters to a domestic water well, and well operators are required to file monthly reports of the volume of water and the identity of chemicals that they're using in their fracking. These are posted publicly online. Don't forget about earthquakes. After multiple earthquakes in areas with high levels of fracking between 2009 and 2014 in BC, new regulations were issued. These required seismic risk assessments at disposal wells, seismic monitors at wells, and immediate suspension of drilling when an event of magnitude 4 or greater is detected. Molly and Ted knew that they wanted to start a family. Given the uncertainty, they decided to apply the precautionary principle, find a different place to live away from fracking. Did they succeed? Stay tuned to find out.